Perfect. Okay, so we're going to call the February 1st, 2021 meeting of the St. Albans Town Select Board to order. We're going to start by all muting and following Stan's lead on the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with life, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. We're going to continue on with the way that we've been passing warrants, if you'd like, Stan.
All right, let me find them here. Okay. I'll start with the general warrants dated 2/1/21. 77 invoices totaling $121,157.50. Now, 14 of those invoices are from our friends, neighbors to the north. Sand and salt from Canada. 14 invoices totaled $76,875. The next one is just a group of insurances. We had 20 invoices for health, dental, life, vision, and property. And that totaled $22,020. We had 9 invoices, Green Mountain Power for lights, $3,902. These 43 invoices total 85% of our total money spent. You may have a question. If you looked at your invoices, there was $500 we spent for a boat. A boat in January, because we're going to use it this spring to inspect under the bridge, that Black Bridge. About 2 years ago, when the state was in here, Jim Coda and Kyle Carpenter, that's one of the things they said we needed to get under the bridge, spend some time there and inspect it. So Alan got a heck of a good deal on it and he purchased it, and it's a good move. So based on everything that I just talked about, I say I make a motion to approve the general warrants in the amount of $121,157.50.
Second.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right? Okay, I got payroll from 1/11 to 1/17/21 in the amount of $20,142.05. The second week of payroll is from 1/18 to 1/24/21 for $32,446.83. The increase over the 20,000 was it's always at month end. We pay the Beamers out of it, and that's where that money went to retirement accounts for employees. Based on the information I provided, I make a motion to approve both weeks of payroll.
Second.
Any further questions? Hearing none, please all signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, the next one I have is warrants. Infrastructure development warrant. The total amount was $41,621.97. That was broke down to Connor Construction for $18,556.97. Freeman, and the next one went to the Town Hall Cost Center, the relocation. Freeman, French and Freeman, $18,000. Peterson Consulting, $2,687. and another one from Peterson Consulting for $2,378. The total amount is $41,621.97. And I'll make a motion to approve the infrastructure warrant.
I'll second it.
Any further questions? Hearing none, please all signify by saying aye. Sorry, didn't
Aye.
Aye.
hard time working the mute button tonight. Thank you for getting us through our warrant, Stanley. We also have minutes in front of us. We have the special meeting of January 22nd, when we finished, it was a continuance actually, of our Wednesday, January 20th meeting. We stayed that until that date and time, and we continued and then adjourned. So we started with the full board, and that Friday we had myself, Stanley, and Jonathan, as well as Anna and Carrie. So does anybody have any corrections or comments about the minutes, or would anybody like to make a motion to adopt as presented?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes of Wednesday, January 20th, as discussed.
I'll second it.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting from Friday, the 22nd, with no corrections.
Why don't let's call for a vote on Jessica, or on Aaron's motion now that Jessica seconded it, and then we'll move on to Stan's motion, assuming he gets a second. So all in favor of Aaron's motion to accept the minutes of
Aye.
Friday the 20th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then Stan's got a motion on the floor for the minutes of the 22nd. Do we have a second, Jonathan?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, perfect.
Aye.
Alright, so that's the minutes for tonight. Always clunky doing it over Zoom, but at the end of the day, they all get accepted and printed in the book, right? So we've got public comment, agenda item number 4. Is anybody here to make a public comment? Jen, I'm gonna mute. Our standing rule is about 3 minutes. And then if are you here to talk about running for the Maple Run board?
Yeah, I am running for the Maple Run School Board and the town of St. Albans. So I just wanted to introduce myself to you. Also this week I applied for the Police Advisory Committee. So both of those are things that I am interested in. So just wanted to show my face and see what a board meeting is like, because I've never actually attended one. So thank you all for serving, and I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Williamson? Okay. Thank you again for coming. You're welcome to come to all of our meetings. We love to have guests. As you see, it's highly attended by the public. This is more than average. Let's put it that way. So agenda item number 5, we have our audit engagement letter from AM Peisch. We need a select board motion to accept that audit letter, and we need to specifically authorize Carrie to sign it on the town's behalf. Is that the motion we'd like? I'm seeing dark in the town hall. Okay, now we're back.
You're back. Do you hear us? I think both the select board and the town manager must sign.
Okay, so
you could task Stan with signing on your behalf if that's acceptable.
Okay, so we just need a motion to authorize Carrie and Stanley to sign our engagement letter with our auditing firm, AM Peisch, for this year. I would like to move that.
I'll make a motion to approve, I'm trying to think of the right words, but to delegate or it's not approve, right? What's the right word I'm supposed to be using for this? Authorize, thank you. Authorize Carrie and Stan to sign on behalf of the town and the select board the engagement letter for AM Peisch.
He can be in it at some point. Bob, if you could sit closer to Stan, but just far enough away.
TV, Bob.
Sorry, we have
I'm good.
You can zoom in on him when he's speaking. You don't have to worry about it for the rest of the meeting. He's
Yeah.
here with, Bob Cross entered the room. He's just off out of the camera view.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Jessica. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Perfect. Sets us forward for another audit. You know that they won't find anything. Anna, you're usually within 10 cents. Got a great elected treasurer and great town clerk. And they happen to be the same person.
Thank you.
We've got the town manager's report, agenda item number 6, and we're starting off with the fire department. So good timing, Chief Cross.
All right, so I'll just briefly start out with what I put in my report was that we are per our schedule proposing to sell or trade in the utility truck. They give us a municipal discount, substantial municipal discount at this point. And we are prepared to go out to get a final price instead of just a draft price and see what they'll give us for that truck. And secondly, also, well, I'll just stick with that one for right now and let Bob add something if he has to add something, if you could.
So, truck's a 2014, early 2014, so it's the 2013, 2014 truck. It's got 44,000 miles on it, and our goal has always been, as far as the fire department goes, get something for the vehicle before it's not worth anything for a trade-in. I just did some, I think I approached the select board and talked to you about it in October, I think, when I was in here for budget. And I just got a preliminary pricing from one of the local dealers. And of course, we get the municipal discount on a new truck. Plus, I think they were talking between $25,000 and $28,000 for our truck, the current truck we have now to trade in. So we're thinking that it's going to be like a payment of $24,000 to have a brand new truck sitting in the driveway versus paying $52,000, I think is what the municipal bid would be on that truck. So, and it might be even better than that. We didn't go out to bid. We didn't go pricing Fords or but that was on Chevy. We didn't go to GMC. We didn't go to both. So, the way vehicles are right now competitively, I think this is the right time to do it. And then maybe once we do that, maybe we might look and see if we want to sell the truck outright, or talk the possibility of maybe another department within the town might be beneficial to keep it for that. We can look at all that later down the road. The only thing I'm looking for right now is the permission to go ahead and start getting the process of pricing a truck out, so we can probably order it and have it by May or so. And so that's that one.
You have a question, Stan?
yeah, before you go to the next one, Bob,
Sure.
this truck, it's coming out of the schedule that you have for equipment. It's paid for already. We have cash on hand.
We have cash on hand.
Yes.
It's in our reserve fund for apparatus. So it's a scheduled replaced truck. So like I said, now's the time to do it versus waiting another year or two and losing it, $4,000 or $5,000.
So it's part of capital improvement.
Correct.
Good.
The fire department has its own account.
Yes.
Yeah, fire department reserve is what we're proposing to pull it from.
Why don't we get a board consensus or make a motion to authorize expensing up to $24,634 from the fire department reserve?
I mean, you can vote on consensus, but we don't really have to make a motion for that. It's
No.
part of our plan, and
Chief, I'm fine with trading the truck in and getting a new one if we're gonna go that route. How does everybody else feel? I think the chief wants consensus to be able to move forward, knowing that we're gonna pass that warrant when the time comes. Anybody have any specific questions related to the truck or trading it? No? Okay, chief, so we all gave the nod. I would say go get that new truck ordered.
All right, thank you.
And the second thing under the fire department was a proposal, due to COVID, for now almost a year, we had to change a lot of procedures at the fire department. Obviously, there's cross-contamination risk with their gear. They used to, for most people that aren't aware of it, some carried it in their personal vehicles or brought them home to wash them. They no longer, neither option is acceptable. So we actually need a place where we can wash them, and then you just let them air dry. So we need some racks, some turnout gear racks. Bob went out and got some prices. I'm proposing to pay them with a combination of impact fees and building maintenance funds. And I recommend we pay them. I don't necessarily need a motion, but I'd like to know if anyone has any concerns. It will be something that stays in that station, somewhat portable, but they're pretty heavy, so they're not going to move very far. They're going to become part of that station.
They're gonna be bolted.
Yeah, no, I mean, but
Yeah.
I guess as far as what we buy for rolling stock, this is different.
Right.
That's why I propose a different funding source.
So the thing about, and just, Carrie, if you're done, I can.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So we're probably the last fire department in the county and probably in the state that actually brings their gear, has their gear on their persons. Which isn't the way to do business anymore with carcinogens the way they are, and with the COVID-19 having to keep your gear clean and disinfected all the time. So I guess we didn't worry about the cancer part of it that much before, but now with the new building materials that we have and everything, when we have a fire, we're carrying the stuff home. And having higher risks of cancer, passing cancer on to our families. So this is one of the reasons why, this is the unfortunate part, since COVID, we don't even get in our cabs of the truck with dirty gear on anymore. So regardless of what the temperature is, our guys are stripping their gear off after a fire, a structure fire outside, and just putting their boots on and getting in the cab of the truck, because we don't want these pathogens in the cab of the truck either. So we're trying to keep our trucks clean, and so we're bagging everything prior to washing it, pressure washing it, and then washing it in the heavy duty washing machines that we have at the town garage that were actually purchased for the fire department and put in the garage. So this is the reason why we're looking for these lockers now.
I would say that a funding source seems appropriate and the need is immediate. So does anybody have any further comment other than let's get those racks? Okay.
All right.
Chief, that's a good night.
Appreciate
Hard to
it.
say no. I mean, you guys are putting in so much work.
It's just, I'm just gonna jump up and down and scream and holler and.
Leave while you're ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you,
Please
man.
please let everybody know, that we're thinking of them. We appreciate everything you guys are doing every day. Mean that from the heart. We definitely don't mind helping oversee the finances, but you guys do the day-to-day and you keep us safe. And any chance we get to point that out and say how much we appreciate it, we should.
Well, thank you for that, Brendan.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night, Chief.
You
Good night.
All right. So
All right,
Karen,
so the next part of our agenda involves the town hall construction management delivery system. I briefly spoke about at a meeting or two ago. Hunter Gomez and Tom Peterson Consulting are on board with us tonight. And we spent a considerable amount of time talking about this at our building committee meeting earlier. So at this point, we feel pretty comfortable, and Jesse was on the call. Jesse Robbins from FFF was on the call with us as well. What I got from that was that we are fairly comfortable moving forward with the construction management delivery system. And because I'm not an expert on that by any means, Tom Peterson and Hunter are going to go into a little more detail than that. Take it away, Tom.
Okay, hi. Hello, everybody. Yeah, there are a number of different ways to deliver a project, and probably the most common is the general contractor delivery method, where you put together detailed specs and drawings, put it out to bid to qualified contractors, and you enter into a contract with the lowest bidder. they don't, with that method, they don't really have to show you any of their books. They just give you a price and build your building. It's fairly simple. It's very common. With the construction manager project delivery system, generally you would try to bring in the construction manager fairly early in your project planning process. So oftentimes the construction manager is hired prior to or shortly after you hire the design team. And the construction manager is usually somebody of a contractor caliber with a lot of building experience and the capability to marshal forces. But by engaging them early in the design process, you're able to take advantage of their knowledge of the industry to help guide the design. They can make comments on constructability and cost and phasing and so forth, and really help you get the most efficient design by providing the owner with the contractor's perspective in that process. Your town hall project is moving along at a very admirable clip. It's progressing very well, and obviously you have hired your design team, and they're making great progress. In fact, such good progress that it's almost a little late to hire a construction manager. You don't get the full benefit of the construction manager approach. However, we're still recommending the CM, the construction manager project delivery method, partly because the design documents are not 100% complete. We expect those to be complete later this month, possibly before the bond vote. But even at that point, there'll still be some details that will need to be worked out in the bidding process. So we think that there are some advantages to using the construction management approach for your project. So the first step in that is to qualify construction managers. Obviously, you don't want to hire just anybody. So this is a two-step process. You really have two choices. You can do qualification at the same time that you're requesting proposals from construction managers, or you can pre-qualify construction managers and then request proposals for the actual work. And that's what we're proposing, is that you pre-qualify so that you put an ad out, you put feelers out, you make sure the whole world knows that you want to build your town hall and that you're in the process of hiring a construction manager, and anyone can apply. And they're going to apply through our pre-qualification system. And in that process, we will weed out the contractors that are not qualified. The qualifications are set up based on the needs of the town, and it's closely related to it's designed to coincide with your purchase policy. So this is a method and a process that's very transparent, very defendable, and very efficient. And through that process, you'll find a number of qualified contractors. You may have 8 or 10 contractors that are interested in the project, and you may have only 4 or 5 that might be that pass the qualification process, and that's as it should be. So we're a little ahead of schedule on that process. We reviewed it with the building committee today, and they seem to be on board with it. I'll let Carrie or somebody else verify that, but I think what we'd like to do is finalize that. We have it written in draft form, and we just have a few little odds and ends to tie up with that process and get it out and introduce it to the world. your procurement, your purchasing policy requires an advertisement. So that will go into the St. Albans Messenger. I haven't checked their schedule to find out when that can go in. But we'll get an ad in to the messenger at the earliest possible time we can do that. In the meantime, we can still put the invitation for qualification out to the world. So we do that through Works in Progress, which is a lead subscription service that contractors subscribe to. And we'll do it also through personal outreach. So we'll call contractors that we are pretty sure will qualify and invite them to apply. And so we'll have our bases covered. And we expect that whole process to be well underway before the end of this week.
Good job summarizing that. Yes, I think Anna, Stan, and I confirm that we do support this form of construction delivery system,
Yes.
and really brought you here in case there was any questions.
Eric, could you remind me if Tom's work in finding a CM was in his base contract and that cost that we had looked at? I can't remember for the life of me. Or if is this an add-on? Is work helping us find issuing an RFQ for a construction manager?
Was that a question for me or was that a question for somebody else?
I think it was for both of us, but I believe it was in your scope of work.
Yes, there were two different scopes of work for our services. One was for project budget estimating, and one was for project management. And the budget estimating is mostly, at least the pre-bond DD portion of it is complete. And in terms of project management, the pre-qualification was part of that, and that's what we've been working on.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Does anybody have any other question for Tom related to the construction management delivery system? We also have Hunter here, who's been elbows deep into our into the brutal guts of this town hall cost estimate. If anyone has any questions for him, it was in our packet.
Yeah, I would just add real quick. I think Tom's summary was really good. Just for clarity, the one piece that we're kind of waiting on that really drives this CM decision is some lab soils analysis for the site, which is a lot of clay, and that could change things in terms of the design and the implications of it. And there's just, at this point, really nothing that can be done to speed that up because it's all getting processed through the lab. So that's kind of the big piece we're missing right now. Other than that, the design team and everyone on the building committee has been really setting a great pace, I think. But there's just some things you can't account for. And this delivery method kind of helps to mitigate that and get someone on board to make changes as they come up that you can't plan for in advance.
This
But
budget,
feel free,
Hunter, this budget that we put on the ballot last week of $4.5 million, that covers us in any outcome with the soil result. There's no.
That so that came in before we had talked about kind of doing a more advanced method of handling the soils, and that estimate covers essentially preloading the site with the materials that'll be needed anyways. There had been some discussions with a geotechnical engineer about using lightweight concrete. After we spoke last week, I believe, or two Fridays ago, that number came back and it's quite high. So I think that the building committee is really driving towards that preloading of the site, because in that method, you have to buy all that material anyways. So you have to let it sit for a period of time to be determined, but it does meet all the design requirements, and you're not paying for something that you don't necessarily need just to speed things up.
I guess my only question is for the rest of the board, could you elaborate on what a period of time would look like?
That I can only elaborate to the fact of what the geotechnical engineer has at this point said. without that lab data, can't be confirmed, but somewhere in the ballpark of a few weeks to a couple months is what he had said last. So not a substantial window of time, but using the CM delivery method, you also bring someone in, like Tom was saying, that you don't necessarily have to have 100% drawings complete. That's one of the advantages of it. And they can come on board, and as those things are getting worked out, you can bring in a site person to begin that preloading process, and then you have that waiting period to kind of to really get everything honed in.
Right. How much, if you don't mind me asking, how much roughly did the lightweight concrete, like if that had to be?
We got a proposal from a company that specializes out of Massachusetts, and I'm gonna just tell you exactly what it was. We got a proposal from a company out of Massachusetts, the geotechnical engineer had worked with, and Engineers Construction also provided a price. And Engineers Construction was it was in the
That bad,
it
huh?
was $279,000 from Engineers Construction.
Yeah, that bad.
That's 1,500 yards of cubic yards of that lightweight concrete, which would essentially be plus or minus 4 feet on the interior of the building, and then to finish grade equally around the exterior. And it was slightly cheaper out of the Specialized company in Massachusetts, but not drastically. They were at $212,000. So it's fairly significant, whereas you can achieve the same end result using gravel that you can buy at the gravel pit, but it just has to, the soil has to settle to the point it would before you put the building on top of it, is kind of
The building committee at one point, and I know the board had talked about the 22nd, I believe, Stan and Jonathan, that the preloading could give us time for supply chains to be able to catch up with demand for material. And we may see some things be, something stabilize or alleviate. I mean, we don't ever know. Lumber seems to be like the stock market lately, more so than usual.
That's for sure.
Mhm.
But yeah, I am hopeful we are due for a correction. I can't make any promises on that, but it seems like in talking to some contractors in the area, the residential market, people being home, is really driving a large spike in things that it's kind of skewing the market, was his take on it. So
GameStop.
there's what's that?
GameStop.
Yeah. I don't know if they're driving up the lumber prices, but you never know.
Probably
It's over my
not.
head.
People
Maybe
have
they are. Maybe they are.
using it to build decks off the back of their houses.
Put it this way, nobody's short selling at Home Depot right now.
No, they're definitely not.
No.
So does anybody have any questions for Tom or Hunter? I will say that they're both very good at what they do.
Thank you, Brendan.
I geek out over here learning from them and how they do their breakdowns.
It
I
was
really
a
have
good,
to because,
it was a good meeting, informative today too.
Thank you.
Glad it went over well.
Well,
Right.
we're very proud to be involved in your project, and we're excited to keep doing a good job for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
and taxpayers who may ask, why did we have to appropriate $265,000 to pre-development costs? It's because geniuses like these two don't come cheap. And I mean geniuses, not sarcastic at all. It felt kind of sarcastic coming off my tongue, but
Oh, geez.
you guys are,
Flattery on a Monday.
That's
That's too nice of you. That's too nice of you.
well, I mean, I know how fast we're moving, and for a building of this size and the magnitude of the work that goes into doing a hard cost on something like this, Hunter, you must have had some late nights, so we appreciate it.
We had some weekends, we had some nights, but it's okay because it's a puzzle. I like unraveling the puzzle.
Hunter did a lot of heavy lifting on that estimate to get it in on time, so we appreciate that.
When we set that schedule back in December, I think I can remember looking at the town manager thinking, good luck, whoever we hire, and you pulled it off, so we really appreciate it.
I haven't fallen down yet, but there's always tomorrow.
Well, I won't tell you our reaction in our company when we first saw that schedule, but it's working out.
Yeah, it's working out. No, it's going to be great. I'm excited for town meeting day.
If we all love each other this time next year, something went terribly right.
Yeah, we're in the business of building relationships and buildings, but
We got a fire station in 5 to 10 years, so.
perfect. Yeah, did the fire chief already leave? Don't get him prepped for that yet.
Yeah, he already left.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
We'll
everyone.
be in
have a
touch.
good-
Everybody else set? Perfect.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I guess the
thanks.
last thing I would say is I don't know what this is kind of for you all, but whatever has to. I guess if we're making this official decision, then we'll roll with that.
Yes.
For the rest of the week. So
You got it. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
awesome. Thank you all.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Bye.
evening.
We'll say before we move on from that discussion that Hunter in particular has been a solutions person. Now I came into the building committee a little later on and asked questions like, what would we have to do to the walls and the footings to be able to build a second story over the office space eventually? And whereas a lot of people, rightfully so, might have wanted to chuck their laptops across the room, he sat there and really dove out. We ended up having like a 45-minute discussion about it that he drove pretty well. So we are spending a lot of money, but we're getting a lot of quality advice that should make this a good building for 100 years or more. Getting what we're paying for, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So Gary, back to you.
All right, so under town manager employment and board trainings, I touched on this last week. A couple years ago, we had one of our first Respect in the Workplace meetings. We had board members attend as well as employees. It was great. It's what many of us used to call sexual harassment training, but certainly that's a much more narrow scope than applies right now. So we hired Karen Stackpole, who's one of the leading personnel attorneys in the state. She gave a great, very approachable, practical class to inform employees and board members how to look at different things with regard to respect in the workplace. And I think this year it's time to do it again, although it'll look a little different, just like tonight's meeting. We're going to have this first class include both respect in the workplace, but also some implicit bias and institutional bias training in that 2-hour training. We're going to hold one class during the daytime for employees and another one for board members in the evening. And so what I wanted to add to that, other than what I already put in the notes, was this is the first step of training, I think, and part of what we need to do to be a good employer. If the board wants to go a little deeper and take a deeper dive into it, as I talked to Corey about this, actually, Keisha Ram works hand in hand with Karen Stackpole and has offered to do a second class that gets into the implicit bias and institutional bias quite a bit deeper, actually. And as Karen herself stated, I just think she just thinks it comes from a more realistic place if Keisha shares that conversation with our boards or our employees. At this point, I'm proposing the first class in April. And I wanted to know, I guess, what, if anything, you want to do second, maybe later in the year, or maybe we just move that, more discussion on that to a planning meeting of the select board. I didn't want to get too much deeper on it, on that topic at a regular select board meeting.
Carrie, oops, sorry, I just had a question in our packet. You included information from CQ Strategies. Is that one of the proposed, or is that like the deeper dive as we're talking, or is that the training that you were talking about with Stackpole and Ram?
I've got to look at that right now. I don't recall. I did not have time to review that. No, that was from Jessica. That was not from me, right?
Yeah, that's something that Enosburg is doing with their employees and all their boards. And I just thought it was a good example, and they have a great reputation around the state.
Yeah, I've been to several of your trainings before.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just didn't know if that was one of the things that we were considering or not, but I think the plan you suggested, Carrie, is a good place to start.
I agree with Aaron. Everybody feel on board with that proposal from Carrie?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the first training, and I definitely think we should start looking into that second one as an option too.
And she said it can also be virtual. This one is being virtual if we have to do that, or if we'd prefer to do it in person later in the fall. She's willing to be pretty flexible. Other than she said it needs to be Mondays because her partner obviously is busy, like Corey is Tuesday through Fridays. So. All right, we'll start there then. That's all the direction I needed at this time. Please mark your calendars. Really want to make sure that as many people as possible can attend those trainings. It's not optional for employees. We really need to have everyone attend them. D, on the last part of my report here is just a COVID update. Right now, I don't have a lot that has changed. The town hall is still open by appointment, and the state emergency management director call I listen to on an every other week basis, as Aaron can probably expand upon, is really focused on the state's rollout of vaccinations at this point. So that's all I have right now. I don't know any more than what's reported in the news. Maybe Aaron can add to it.
Well, I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge the town for the, I was at the vaccine clinic that was last Thursday, and twice, I think, St. Albans Town trucks, plow trucks came through and kept the parking lot clear, and especially the drop-off zone at Collins Purley. And that was incredibly appreciated. We had a lot of folks, we don't have space for folks to be waiting inside inside Collins Purley if they get there really early. So we have to ask folks to stay in their vehicle. So there's a lot of folks that, we try to keep them in their car and try to cut them off at the pass so they're not having to walk back and forth. But, for the folks that do have to walk any length, especially with the 75+ crowd, we want to make sure that the area is clean. And, the town did an amazing job doing that. And also the Collins Purley team has just been incredible. Working with Tim has been great. And, we absolutely could not do this without our community. So I just wanted to say thanks to the town for stepping up and supporting this work and keeping the sidewalks and the street clear. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anything else to add or any questions for Carrie? Thank you for the update, Aaron. Okay, hearing nothing, let's move on to schedule. We have regular meetings on the 17th this month due to President's Day. And then we have our, it's actually doubles as a public hearing for town meeting day on the 1st.
Correct.
We're gonna have some fun and ballots. Anna, while we're on the topic, do you need any help from us? We all said we'd be willing to volunteer in one way or another if we needed to.
I'm gonna need lots of help. Oh my gosh.
Right. Do you want to let us know tomorrow what that might look like and we can start volunteering from there?
I will.
Okay. Corey, would you like to meet with Corey at all tomorrow to see what we can do?
I can email Corey.
Perfect. Okay. So we made the news over that. We're mailing everybody ballots, and the messenger actually said that we were the standard bearers. So hell hath frozen over.
It's really a good thing. I mean, we do have to keep people safe.
We do. Cameron Paquette, the new messenger editor, said it best. I think it was something along the lines of taking a quick and decisive action to take advantage of the new law. We as a governing body showed folks that their health and safety is just as important as having an open and free election. And we appreciate his comments. And yeah, whatever you need, Anna, we're all there. I mean,
thank you.
All hands on deck, right?
Brendan, related to that, for town meeting day, I just wanted to say, for the vaccinations that the state is doing, we're typically at Collins Purley Tuesdays and Thursdays, but because of town meeting day, we are going to be at SATEC on town meeting day. Fortunately, they don't have kids in the building, so it makes it a lot easier for us. But if people are scheduling appointments for that day, it'll be part of their scheduled appointment to know that they should be at SATEC instead of Collins Pearly that day.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Does anybody have any questions for Anna related to town meeting day? Any more questions from Carrie before we move on to, or anything about schedule before we move on to this priority list? Okay, Jen, are you still host? Could you make me host so I could share my screen? I want to throw that priority list up on everybody's.
Yep. What you eating?
Peanuts. I thought all I had to do was hit the 3 dots on your screen.
Do I have to make him host? No.
Let's see.
Even Judge Judy tonight was host.
Oh, I gotta make Carrie host and then she's gotta make Brendan host.
Okay.
All right, Carrie, now you can switch it to Brendan.
Yep, I got the notice.
Okay.
Love Zoom.
Hey, we're much better at than we were a few months ago.
All right, perfect.
Sure are.
Hey, everybody, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
I can only see some of your faces, so if you would like to chime in, you can use the wave function or interrupt me. I'm gonna keep glued to this. So this list, Carrie and Corey and I worked on it in unison, and we tried to come up with everything that we thought had been mentioned at a select board meeting within the last year or two, and try to put it together so we could really quantify exactly what we've asked staff to look into, and to see if we left anything off the list in particular. My goal for us tonight is to adopt this list or an amended version, and then to ask staff to come back to us at our second meeting in March when we organize with some type of a proposed priority list based on overall project costs, how quickly they can go. You know, you'll see some of these things are due almost by then. Not that I meant to pile on a bunch of work to Corey in the middle of the legislative session. You know, I had some taxpayers that said they were concerned about whether or not he'd be able to crank out work, so I figured a stress test was in order, knowing that he'd pass it. So let's go down the list. Again, if you'd like to interrupt me, please do. So this is municipal infrastructure priorities. It's pretty broad. You'll see on the next page it even includes municipal IT, since we're kind of behind in the 21st century rat race of implementing appropriate and state-of-the-art software. But so the other goal is after we adopt this priority list and then adopt another version of it ranked and maybe with more of a fleshed out schedule, there'll be another item to the table for staff to be able to give us periodic updates either once or twice a month. That way we can all feel like everything that the town's working on globally, we have our finger on the pulse, even if some things have to wait, because, you know, this list is pretty extensive and not all of it's going to be done right off. Some of it is, you know, thinking, you know, even 5 to 10 years from now, and discussions for things that have to happen within the next, you know, 2 to 10 years. But so construction of the new town hall, it's in the voters' hands now. You know, our goal is to complete it about a year from approval. With the pandemic, if we end up with material shortages, that schedule could change. We already need to factor up to a couple months for preloading. Fire department facilities. You know, at some point, we're going to need to talk about either a new or a satellite station somewhere near the north end. That's kind of a blind spot for us. You know, I've had brief conversations with the chief about approaching the town of Swanton, who also has that area that it'd like to develop as a commercial sector, to see if there could be some intermunicipal cooperation there. But I'd like to propose, as chair, getting the fire department to begin thinking about their future while we still have all these great members. Not to be ageist in any way, but we have a couple members that have been around a really long time, like the chief, that might not be here in 3 to 5 years. So it's you know, starting the conversation now, even knowing that we probably won't be able to address it for another, you know, 3 to 5 years, depending where it ranks in our priority list, and also giving us the ability to catalog that institutional knowledge now before they're gone. You know, and they might decide to stick around if they know that within 5 years we're going to be talking about building a new fire station. So it's getting that discussion started. Stonehouse renovations, I've been harping on it for quite a while that we have over $80,000 on hand. I'd like to see all the money spent. So again, this is kind of, staff helped me with it, but you're gonna see that I put my own tinge on this because I had to, I wrote it myself, so why not, right? I'd like to task Alan and John and Gary, and then us in the end with approving it, with coming up with a ground plan by the end of April to spend everything on hand to put as much money in the building as we can to get the, anything we can do to, it's part of an economic revitalization and COVID and keeping the economy moving. And it also, we learned last year that parks are a lot more important than we may have thought in the grand scheme of the world. So anything we can do to improve what we have, especially with on-hand funds, we should do that. And I have a lot of faith in John and Alan that they'll put together the best bang for the buck out of that. So we can come back to that. Route 36, this has been a discussion for us for 2 or 3 years. It's been on hold. I put Representative McCarthy. He was on House Transportation. Now he's a whip. Has a speaker's ear. So he's on GovOps. So maybe we could utilize that connection. And then Casey Toof and Lynn Dickinson also because whatever we come up with AOT for a solution will need to be funded in the T-bill. So it's going to be, we're still probably a couple years out from being able to implement anything, but every year that we go that doesn't see progress is another year lost. So the goal is to, this is a lofty goal. I don't intend to chastise Corey to any degree if he can't meet it, but if you could work with the Agency of Transportation, Corey, to try to kickstart this and, hopefully get at least an answer from them by the end of March about when they'd be willing to even have this discussion. If it's not immediately, that would be great. The St. Albans Health Path, Jessica and I attended a planning commission meeting where there was a lot of enthusiasm for making the St. Albans Health Path our number one sidewalk or bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure priority. Connecting the complex to Hardack all the way out to the rail trail is it's a vision that the town's had for a while, and it's time to, now that we've finished onboarding people onto our team and everybody's excelling at their role, we're gonna have a good run and ask preliminarily Corey to start working on coming up with a design of where we could take the path, and we can start doing some surveying, some easement acquisitions, and we'd like just a rough GIS sketch. And I guess our new zoning administrator is really good with GIS and being able to help us do these things. So we'd like to just get a rough sketch on where we think we can put the path by the end of March. That way we can conceptually see it on paper. Notice that we also have a lot of stakeholders listed here: NMC, the City of St. Albans, Maple Run. We're going to need to get all our partners on board. Preliminarily, we think this could cost upwards of $7 million. And we envision a large chunk of it to be a 10-foot wide multi-use path that could get downsized at certain spots to make it fit within certain properties, especially in that area around the hospital. So more to come on that, but the idea is to make that our number one priority for bike and ped infrastructure. I think it solves a lot of problems. And then obviously if we'll talk about it a little further down. If the town hall passes, we need to connect the new town hall property to the Bay Dock. So a new website. Corey, do you want to give us an update on that real quick?
Sure. First draft designs are in. We're building a site map now, which just takes time. I've worked with, working with the various departments on what they want their various pages to feature, and we're collecting all of our paper applications that can be turned into online applications to go on the website. So my guess is another week or so I'll have that information over to our firm, and 3 to 4 weeks from there they'll have a rough draft of a full website for us.
And you want to give a brief update on our logo and our branding?
Yep, firm's hired. We've had an initial kickoff meeting with them. We've had most of the staff fill out design preference forms. we're just waiting on a few more pieces of information to get over to them, and then next 2 to 3 weeks they'll put together 4 or 5 different logo concepts that we'll review and then make edits to, and kind of pick one as our path and make adjustments. But that one I think is coming along nicely. The firm we hired is owned by a St. Albans City resident with a long time experience. They've worked with Bag Bomb, Stratton, some other ski resorts and everything in the area. They do a lot of utilities, so it's good to be working with a local firm there.
The health department, done quite a bit. Their rap sheet on their website's pretty impressive. So moving on to Cohen Park, I challenge you all to take a drive within the next few days or weeks down to Cohen Park and look at our bathrooms in that particular building and tell me that it gives you any good, warm, fuzzy feelings. And it's really we haven't invested enough in it as a resource. It's kind of like a gem in the rough. So I'd like to put it down as talking about doing some renovations. I know we've invested in a new pavilion and made some improvements to the parking area, but we were able to do that. I think we did the whole pavilion for $20,000. So it's pretty reasonable to say that we've gotten away without having spent significant money on Cohen Park in quite some time. It's very possible that as staff explores this list, they could decide that we've overbooked our revenues as far as building a basketball and tennis court could go, or something like that. But we challenge you to present us with something by the end of September that could be proposed anytime between town meeting date 2022 and 2024 to fund with LOT revenue as received with no loans. Maybe we can just do some basic cosmetic improvements to the bathrooms and call it good. Anything we can do to improve what we have. Carrying on that sentiment, Alan, if you could give us one more update on the work that was done in French Hill, and if you have any more to go. That's just such a positive thing that happened last year, and any chance we get to talk about it, we should. Alan, if you'd like to let us know the work that was done on French Hill last year. And I think he's trying to unmute.
Yeah, it wasn't unmute. My button wasn't working. Yeah, so I got the from regional planning, I gotten some grants to change out some of the culverts up there. We did about 1/4 of a mile. What we did, we reclaimed the road, which means ground up the entire amount of asphalt right down to the gravel, and it mixes in. We raised the road by about 3 feet and then repaved with a base and a top coat. Those were some troubled areas that heaved every year with the frost. So by upgrading and fixing the ditches and the culverts and raising the road, potentially it's going to be a lot better this year. Hopefully, if my budget stays like I think it will with the paving schedule, I'm hoping to do another 1/4 mile, adding on to where we left off to get another troubled part of the road taken care of.
Perfect. So that's long overdue improvements to French Hill happening at a record clip for us. That's worth noting. And thank you, Alan, for all the work that you guys have done. It's one of the things I'm most often complimented about the work in the town. It's something that people mention the most, even people that don't live on French Hill. Make a point as to thank you for finally addressing that. So passing that on to you. The Bay Park boat, the Bay boat launch. Corey reached out fairly informally to the Director of Fish and Wildlife and received some pretty positive feedback and an offer to help us receive grants. So that's something that's on the list. If voters approve the town hall, we'll need to acquire easements and do a construction estimate, and maybe even ask for funding in town meeting day 2022 to build a sidewalk to connect us from the new town hall all the way to the Bay Dock. So that's something that we'll need to talk about. Hopefully that would be a happy conversation. If we're not talking about that, something went wrong. Municipal IT, this is more than Corey, but to be honest, I didn't want to carry on to another page. I tried to keep everything broken up. So every department head will basically be tasked with over the next year, I would say, and identifying where they need help with information technology and how we can implement that. Like the new website, it will literally save us the need to add FTEs to our staff over time. So critical. So municipal operations, that's a whole nother page. You know, this doesn't include our day-to-day. This is just special events, really. Special events, you know, we'll see what we can have. I'm sure Alan and his team and John will knock it out of the park, whatever we are allowed to have, but we're here as a support mechanism, however they need us. Policing services provider transition, that's going to be something that we talk about more and more as the date comes up. I know that Carrie has been regularly in touch with the sheriff and John Brismore, and we're hearing good things. It seems like everything's on track. We've got to implement a stormwater utility. The hiring process for the coordinators in progress. Regional planning is actually helping us map out impervious surfaces, and our goal is to send our first bills with tax bills in July. But this is going to be a year-long effort. As a side note, if you have folks from private roads like Tanglewood in particular coming forward to ask you if it's in your opinion that the town will be able to tackle a project this year, honestly, I would say no. We're going to have some growing pains with this utility. We're going to have to amend the ordinance pretty regularly. But there's a program that I'd like to work on together that should give people a lot of hope for the future. We'll touch on that a little later. DPW equipment reserve, we made a decision to hold that off till town meeting day 2022, but we'll have to discuss that in more detail and adopt it however we'd like to bill for it, whether it's a separate broken out item on tax bills, you know, that whole discussion. I also know that it didn't, I asked staff today, the number didn't include any replacement money for Black Bridge. So we'll have a discussion on, you know, after we get the boat in the water that we just bought for 500. You know, after we get it under there and do some conditions assessment, we'll have a better idea where we're at and if we need to start appropriating money immediately. A racial equity review, that's going to start with trainings we talked about. We definitely should have an implicit bias training. I think that would be the most productive and well received by everybody. I think we would learn the most out of an implicit bias training, so that'll happen later in the year. I'd also like to do a review of all ordinances and policy through the scope of racial equity. In general, we're going to have to, when we move on to municipal planning priorities, we're already going to have our fingers in quite a few of our policies, so it might just be a good time to do that as we move forward with those scheduled amendments. So the Police Advisory Committee, we have an applicant on with us tonight still, I think. Thank you for applying, Ms. Williamson. But that's going to be the Director of Operations and Staff person. The Select Board's going to have to appoint people. Sheriff Longervin's going to be tasked with coming to all the appointments and helping to carry out any helpful suggestions from the committee. So the goal is to have their first meeting no later than March 2021, which means we need to make at least a quorum worth of appointments at our next meeting and fill any other seats hopefully by the 1st. Corey said that seems to jive with his schedule. So until we hear anything else, we've got some retained land on Brigham Road, some decision points to discuss in executive session, but that's something that's going to take up a little time. And we're getting to the end of the list. I know this is a lot, but it's worth it. So if the town hall passes, we're going to need to amend the village center designation because it doesn't really, currently include the land that we have the town proposing to site the town hall now, but that should be an easy amendment. We want to file that hopefully by the end of April 2021. We need a town plan amendment, potentially to consider provisions in regards to the land trust. That should start with the Planning Commission, recommend an amendment to the Select Board, go from there. As part of that, we could look at it from a racial equity perspective also. We could decide to ask staff to look at it from there. I'd like to have that fully adopted by the end of June. If we decide to expand on it, we're looking at it from more of a lens than just the land trust issue. That obviously gets pushed back. We talked about having to do a unified development bylaw update. I was wrong about the interim daycare bylaw being expired. It was a 2-year bylaw, so that's a mistake on my part. So that July 2021 can be September. And we should look at zoning, especially in areas with municipal water and sewer where we have a little bit of control, to make sure that our land use regulations are consistent and equitable for all people. So that's something that we'll definitely want to look into. The sidewalk master plan, that was something that came up at length during the planning commission meeting. We'll really have to go through and amend that sidewalk master plan to reflect our #1 priority being the St. Albans Health Path. When that plan was passed, it was its priority list was done with an algorithm that was that included some weighted grading for cost and readiness to construct. This one in particular is one of the more expensive projects, and we're not close to being ready to construct it, so it's pretty far down on the list. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be our #1 priority. I think we know that as a group. It solves a lot of issues for us. Then a complete roads policy. I don't know that we can afford a complete roads policy, but an amended version thereof. If Alan, we talked about, 3 to 4 years before we pave a road, we look at every intersection and we look at how it's constructed and the speed limit, and we make sure that it's working as intended, and we want to repave it as is. And if not, we work on making changes. So I'd like to have that, a version of a complete roads policy in place by the end of 2021. And then if you weren't sick of hearing me talk yet, you will be by the end of this one. The private roads program, proposing to send a presentation down to the planning commission. I have a link here I will send to everybody because you definitely don't want to listen to me go through that whole thing. It's really a path forward that is equitable for all town taxpayers to give private road homeowners an option to have any stormwater or roadway issues repaired, and then have the road taken over by the town for maintenance. There's a lot of caveats in it, but we've had a long enough discussion about priorities, so we can go over this maybe at our next meeting and recommend it to the planning commission from there. I'd also like a chance to further discuss it with our DPW director to get his perspective before we make a full-blown presentation to the board. But it'll be a significant policy. I think it's one that we'll be excited about when we flesh it out a little bit more and get to the point where it's ready to be talked about. So with that, I'll go back up to the top of the list and I'll ask anybody if they have any specific comments or questions, or if there's anything we missed. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to make Carrie host again. Okay.
I'm honestly trying to think about what we might have missed, but I feel like this captures a lot of our conversations as of late of what we've said. There's a bunch of things that have come up that we've said, okay, we'll table it for now and we'll talk about it over the next year. And I feel like, you all did a really good job capturing the things that we said we wanted to see happen within the next year. So thanks for that.
Yeah, just a second what Erin said. When I was reading the packet, I was getting really excited. I've never read a packet and felt really excited, but it was nice to see everything laid out. And I felt like all the things that have been brought up, the health path, the sidewalks, looking at doing the equity review, it's like all right there. And now there's deadlines on it. And I'm happy to support it in any way that I can. So thank you.
Thank you both. Stanley, do you have any comments from the room? I made a specific point. We had talked about having a priority planning meeting with the Planning Commission in April. That got moved up a couple months because we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to give us your insight before you got off the board. Not that you won't have ample opportunities to give us your insight after you're off, but this is a significant planning step, so we wanted to hear from you.
I believe everything is covered here. Everything we talked about over the last 5 years, 6 years is when I've been here. And I like the private roads. We have done a lot of push back on those people that live on the roads, and now we can probably focus a little closer on them and see what we can do and what they can do to help us.
Well, to elaborate a little bit, the private road program proposal is a structured turnover, basically, of an improved road. You know, say it had a total project cost of $150,000 to fix a private road, and $50,000 was for stormwater, and $100,000 was repaving and, you know, maybe regrading, doing ditch work. The private road program would give an HOA the ability to have the town take out a 10-year tax anticipation note and charge 100% of the debt costs as a special assessment on tax bills. And then as soon as that work was completed, the town would begin plowing. So those maintenance costs could be used to offset the cost of the special assessment. So the goal of the private roads program, as we're building it, is to, you know, give private road stakeholders an ability to, you know, basically leverage the town's credit, for lack of a better, you know, phrase, to be able to take out a loan as a group that'll be repaid as a group, and it allows their roads to be built to our spec and their stormwater improvements to be complete. And there's a whole note in this presentation that we're not going to do tonight that says if their stormwater systems are hydraulically connected to an MS4 impaired watershed, we could use a stormwater utility and some funding from that mechanism to help offset some of those costs to alleviate any debt they may have to incur. And it helps us get a stormwater project and an impaired watershed done at the same time. So that's going to be a really exciting program. We'll try our best to get it done before it stands off the board, at least to the point where we feel that it's presentable. But again, I need to sit down with Alan and, you know, take his comments back to Carrie and Corey and get to a point where we feel comfortable. But Jonathan, you'd be the last person on the list we haven't heard from.
Yeah, it's a good list. Whoever worked on it, they did a fantastic job. I can't wait to prioritize it a little bit. That'll be good. But nice work.
Thank you very much. Why don't we operate on consensus? We're going to ask the staff to come back at our organizational meeting in March with a thought out version of this list that includes some priorities and maybe some pricing. That way we can make sure that we don't, you know, overspend. You know, we don't want to reach in the till too many times and come out worse for wear because of it. So, you know, some of these projects won't be able to be done as we think they will be, but, you know, it's no good deal. Nobody ever walks away from a good deal happy. So if we can, you know, all make each other a little bit happy, get a lot done for the town, we'll all be better off for it. Anybody have any other business? I know Jonathan had something in regards to maybe opening Cohen Park up and maybe some gates at Bay Park for ice fishing access.
Yeah, so this Sunday, being one of the coldest days of the season, I believe, I was out on the lake with my son, and I was amazed on the amount of people that were out on Hathaway Point. I mean, some people were skating. I think some people just actually went for a walk because they saw the crowd and whatever. So I noticed the Bay Park did have the parking lot that's open. It has a gate, but it's open on, say, the east side of the park was pretty full. I was wondering if we could open the main entrance and have it plowed so we could just have more parking there. There were a couple snowmobile trailers that were in the park also. And access to the snowmobile trail, if they were parked in the main parking lot, they probably wouldn't ride on the paved trail because those studs on the snowmobile will ruin the pavement on that walking trail. And one more comment to that would be, should we be like clearing that walking path a little better? Because like this weekend it looked like kind of icy, snowy. Should we sand it or should we just leave it be? Or, you know, because there's a lot of people walking it.
I'm going to direct all those questions to Gary. I think Alan got off the meeting.
You might have. I don't think we've provided any winter snow removal right now. I think we either need to do it 100% or we need to leave it as is, which is natural right now. There's some liability. Not saying we can't do it going forward, but that's actually one of the main reasons I'd love to explore a sidewalk ordinance. Not necessarily to, I don't mean to imply you need to have a fee associated, but I think explaining very clearly what our winter maintenance and all their maintenance schedules are helps a lot. That's what Williston's does, actually. They have a lot of sidewalks, but they don't maintain all of them in the winter time. They maintain the arteries though, and they explain how they do that, and that they're basically like second or third priority after roads are done. It's not impossible. It's just we don't do it right now. That's all.
Right. Well, somebody's plowing it with a tractor, I've noticed.
Well, I didn't think they were doing it that often though. And so is there any sand or salt being put down?
Yeah, no, it doesn't appear to be from what I can see. I haven't walked it, but you know, when you drive by on the road, there's like no sand and it looked pretty packed down this weekend. So
This particular issue with this, the walking path in the park would be addressed in the parks ordinance, not a sidewalk ordinance, because it's a feature of the park, I would say. I want to remind everybody the ordinance we inherited in 2017 had gates locked from Labor Day to Memorial Day in all parks. It was illegal to walk your dog in a park. We've made a lot of strides, but we're always looking to improve accessibility. And that's really under the realm of, Alan and John. So Carrie, if you want to bring those questions to them and maybe come back on the 17th with, what we can do, if we can open the parks for ice fishing access and have that be part of the ordinance, and we can prioritize how they're plowed and when, I'd like to put that in writing and get that on paper. That way it's set every year and we know what to expect.
So we don't need an ordinance to plow. We can do that. And we've often opened part of this big.
It's an access thing. I mean, the ordinance, if the ordinance says gates are locked from a certain time to a certain time, and then we make, informal exceptions throughout the winter, I'd rather have it be totally straight up within the ordinance. And if it's just an amendment to the ordinance, I think that's something that we could handle in-house. That's just.
And it's not just, the ice fishermen. I mean, the town has been maintaining some sort of a skating rink down on the beach also. So we need to maintain access and have people a safe place to park, not along the road edge.
Agreed.
So there was two separate questions. So the question 2, can we plow it and provide people space to park? Yes, I think we can, and we have, and we've done it at Cohen. We've also done it here and, move the big rocks at the Black Bridge end to allow ice fisher people access to the ice. So are you saying you want an ordinance, suggestions to an ordinance in 2 weeks? I mean, the next 2 weeks are busy for plowing or just the sidewalks or neither?
Let's start doing our prior year practices with Cohen Park, and then maybe open the gates and start doing some plowing for the rinks, if that's something we can handle on an immediate basis. And then over the next month or two, as we have a little bit of time to breathe, maybe after town meeting day, we should look at a parks ordinance amendment to make whatever we decide to do set in stone for every year. That way it's never a question.
Oh, it'll be questioned every year, but we can revise it. It seems to be updated often. That's okay. Okay.
Good though.
Yeah,
That's
fine.
good.
I'm just wondering, is the plan to keep it clear all winter for ice skating?
I think so, yeah. John thought it's in water that's so shallow too. We weren't super concerned about it. There's a few inches of water at best, so just enough to create a nice, safe place to skate.
It's actually really, really nice to go down there and see like some old hockey team players from BFA just duking it out down there on the ice.
Not in the parking lots, only after.
No, it was nice to go and see that.
It's awesome. We're doing a lot to revitalize the bay. The parklet at the end of the dock, the list goes on. I will say that I had a really positive meeting with the St. Albans Little League board about making the Bay Park fields the official home of Little League softball. And that was very well received. They love John. They love everybody on the parks team. They love Alan. I offered them, a free vendor spot in the farmer's market so that they could take advantage of that as a fundraising opportunity, given that they wouldn't have a full snack bar like they would at Coffee Fields. And we've they're very happy. We think it's going to be a good atmosphere. Encourage them to schedule games around Thursday night to take advantage of the live music. But it didn't take much convincing, especially after last year's good record of park maintenance. So I haven't, there's not a wet signature on anything, but when we get a scope of some terms from parent coaches, especially in regards to raking and lining the field, we'll make sure it works for John and his crew. And then once we have staff and the Little League board on the same page, we'll take it to the select board for your nod and to tell the world. But good things, the more people we can bring down to the bay, the better off it'll be in the end. Does anybody have any other business?
I just have one really quick thing. I was remiss in my thank yous earlier. Sheriff Longvin stood with me in the cold, helping direct folks where they needed to go for the better part of the day, and joined our team and really felt like a member of our team. I was incredibly grateful for the work that he did with us, and yeah, also helped make the day a success. So thank you.
You're welcome, Aaron.
Okay. Carrie, do you have anything else for us before we entertain a motion to enter executive session?
I do not. But please include Corey and myself.
Okay, who wants to read the tongue twister this week?
Brennan, I would just want to, before we go into executive session, we do have a number of applicants in and enough to get a quorum, if not complete the full police advisory committee. But I'd appreciate it if you could assign 2 select board members or have 2 volunteers from the select board help us make those recommendations and to review the applications with me.
I'd be interested in doing that.
One wants to help Jessica and Corey vet applications for the police advisory committee. And okay, Jonathan, your hand went up. All right, you volunteered as tribute. I'm not going to stop you. So you both have fun, and we look forward to staffing, to appointing the full committees. Their work underway. Thank you for the reminder, Corey. You didn't mean to forget you. So, who would like to read the tongue twister?
All right, I'm ready.
Perfect.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues where premature general public knowledge of the subject matter would place the town or persons involved at substantial disadvantage, and further move to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of Vermont statutes, and to invite the town manager and director of operations.
Second.
Second.
We need an assessor too, right, Carrie?
Oh, yes.
Would you like to amend the motion, Aaron?
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion to include the town assessor.
We have a second as amended.
Second as amended.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So Jen and Jen, have a great night.